So, you're thinking about putting your money to work down under. Smart move. In this explainer, we're going to jump right into the very best investment opportunities Australia has to offer for 2026. This is all based on some seriously sharp expert analysis, so let's get right to it.
It really all kicks off with this thought. Australia isn't just a country that's doing well. It's a nation that's literally rewriting its own economic destiny. And look, that's not just some nice-sounding marketing slogan. It's the real deal, and it's backed up by some seriously solid numbers.
And the fundamentals? Oh, they absolutely back this up. When you look at 2026, what you see is this powerful mix of strong demand at home and a resources sector that is just booming. The whole outlook is just incredibly strong. We're talking about a period primed for some major growth and, importantly, stability.
All right, so what's the big number everyone's looking at? Well, the Reserve Bank of Australia. They're calling for a solid 2.5% GDP growth for the year. Now, let's be real. In a world that feels pretty uncertain economically, 2.5%, that is a very healthy number. It's a huge sign of just how robust this economy is.
And it's not just about growth for growth's sake, right? This is healthy growth. The unemployment rate is set to hang around a super low 4%. What does that tell you? It points to a workforce that's strong, active, and getting things done.
Okay, so what's the last piece of this economic puzzle? It's inflation. And the great news is it's cooling off, expected to settle right around that sweet spot of 2.5%. So think about it. Strong growth, low unemployment, and inflation under control, that is the trifecta. It creates an incredibly attractive playground for investors.
Okay, so that's the why. Why Australia? Why now? But who's our guide through the what to invest in and how to do it? Let's meet the expert whose brain we're going to be picking.
That would be Ankush Mukundan. He's a seasoned financial strategist, and we're talking more than 15 years of experience navigating the tricky waters of international markets. He really specializes in those resource-heavy economies, just like Australia's. His whole game is about spotting those hidden gems, the undervalued assets, and the next big growth sectors.
And his track record? Wow, it really does speak for itself. We're talking about 18% annualized returns. He's consistently beaten the ASX 200, which, is the main stock index in Australia, and he's managed portfolios worth over 100 million Aussie dollars. The bottom line is, this is advice you can take to the bank.
All right, let's get to the good stuff, the actual opportunities. So what's Ankush's #1, top-of-the-list pick for 2026? He calls it the Green Rush. And we're talking about Australia's renewable energy sector, which is, to put it mildly, absolutely booming.
Now, let's be clear. This isn't just some passing trend. This is a massive trillion-dollar shift, and it's getting a huge jolt of energy from a $20 billion government pledge. It's called the Future Made in Australia Act. When you have that kind of political and financial muscle behind something, you know it's serious.
And just look at the performance here. This is what's so incredible. The Clean Energy Index, that's the group of companies in the renewable space, it's shot up an insane 150% between 2020 and 2025. Now compare that to the rest of the market, which grew around 30%. I mean, it's not even close. It just blows it out of the water. This chart right here shows you the explosive potential we're talking about.
Okay, so beyond that green rush, what else? Ankush points to 3 other key engines that are really driving growth at home: property, small business, and of course, tech.
When it comes to property, there are kind of 2 different stories playing out. You've got your big capital cities like Sydney and Melbourne, right? They've already bounced back with a strong 10% jump. But the real opportunity, the place to look, might just be in those regional hubs, places like Brisbane and Perth. You can still find properties there for about a 20% discount, and the rental yields are way higher, pushing up towards 6%.
And as Ankush himself says, property is really the backbone of wealth in Australia. It just is. It's stable, you can actually touch it, it's tangible, and historically, it's been a fantastic shield against inflation. It's just a cornerstone for any serious long-term plan.
All right, next up, riding the entrepreneurial wave. Now this one's for those of you who are okay with a bit more risk, because the rewards can be huge. The game plan is pretty straightforward. First, you find a niche that isn't being served well. Think aged care or ecotourism. Then you use government grants, which can go up to 100 grand to lower your risk. And if you pick a winner, you could be looking at returns of 30, 40, even 50% a year.
And wrapping up our growth engines is tech. Listen to this. $5 billion in venture capital funding just last year. You've got places like Sydney's Tech Central that are starting to rival Silicon Valley.
The takeaway here is that Australia's tech and AI scene, it's not up and coming anymore. It has arrived. It's here.
Okay, so we've talked about growth, but every smart portfolio needs some protection, right? Some defense. Ankush calls his final two picks portfolio armor. And what is that armor made of? Gold and critical minerals.
Just take a look at this table. It shows what happened back in 2022 when interest rates were being hiked like crazy. Stocks, they took a nosedive, went into the negative. But gold ETFs, they actually delivered a positive 12% return. It's like the quiet bodyguard in your portfolio, you know? It protects your wealth when everything else is shaky.
And last but not least, critical minerals. This is like Australia's natural advantage crashing into the future. I mean, the country supplies 50% of the world's lithium. They are literally fueling the EV revolution and the entire green energy shift. You want to talk about a future-proof investment? This is it.
So, we've gone through all the individual pieces, but the big question is, how do you put it all together? Let's take a look at the final blueprint, Ankush's recommended portfolio for 2026.
And here it is. This is how it all breaks down into a really nice, balanced portfolio. The biggest chunk, 30% goes to the stability of property. Makes sense. Then you got a hefty 25% in that high-growth renewable sector. Small business gets 15%. Then for that armor we talked about, 10% in gold. And finally, you've got a combined 20% slice for those future-focused plays, tech and critical minerals. What you end up with is this great mix of stability and some serious growth potential.
So there you have it, a complete roadmap to the very best investment opportunities in Australia for 2026. Look, the country is writing a whole new economic story, and the stage is set for smart investors to get in on the action. The only real question left is, Australia's calling. Are you ready to answer?